The phone rang at noon. I picked up, and David's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Don't call me over trivial matters. My mother had just died." And that was his response. I stood there frozen, the weight of those words pressed down on my chest like a boulder, suffocating, crushing. A dull ringing filled my ears as my fingers trembled around the phone. Trivial matters. The woman who raised me, who sacrificed everything to give me a life, was gone. And to the man I had loved, to the man I had spent years supporting, that was nothing more than an inconvenience. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't sure what it was yet. Rage, disbelief, or maybe a clarity I had been too blind to see all these years. But I knew one thing. In that moment, David's words did something he never expected. They woke me up. David and I had been married for 3 years. We met when I was working at a small floral shop downtown. He was charming, successful, the kind of man who knew exactly what to say to make a woman feel special. When he courted me, he was patient, attentive, every bit the picture of a devoted partner. Back then, I thought I was lucky. I was raised by a single mother, watching her struggle to make ends meet, sacrificing every part of herself to ensure I had a roof over my head. She was strong, independent, but she was also alone. I didn't want that for myself, so when David came along, stable, confident, promising a future where I wouldn't have to fight so hard, I fell for him. And for a while, life was good. But something shifted after we got married. David was no longer the man who had once held my face in his hands, telling me I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. He became someone else, someone colder, someone who no longer saw me as a partner, but an obligation, a fixture in his life, like the couch in our living room. Useful, but forgettable. At first it was subtle, dismissive glances when I spoke, eye rolls when I asked about his day. Then it escalated, criticisms of my cooking, complaints about my clothes, the way he would throw his dinner away untouched because it wasn't good enough. I convinced myself it was normal. Men get tired, work stress builds up, marriage isn't always easy. But there were moments, crystal clear moments, when I felt a gut-wrenching certainty that something was wrong. Like the time he told me I should stop making a big deal out of things, when I cried over a bad day at work, or the time he laughed when I asked if he still found me attractive. And yet, through all of it, I stayed. Because I loved him, because I wanted to believe the man I married was still in there somewhere, buried beneath whatever had made him this way. I ignored the red flags, the way he suddenly started staying late at work, the hushed phone calls, the shift in how he touched me, less tender, more obligatory. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was paranoid, until today, until my mother, the only person in my life who had ever loved me unconditionally, died. And David called it trivial. My fingers curled into a fist around the phone. I was done. But before I could hang up, before I could process the full weight of what had just happened, he spoke again, voice dripping with irritation. "Oh, and by the way, I moved some money around. The joint account was getting too cluttered." I pulled the phone away from my ear, my breath catching in my throat. My heart pounded as I tapped open my banking app. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. 0. The account was empty. My stomach twisted, nausea rising in my throat. My savings, my security, the money I had planned to use for emergencies for a future, gone. "David," I said, my voice eerily calm, "where is the money?" A pause. Then a soft chuckle. "Relax, sweetheart. I just took care of a few things. You don't need to worry about it." You don't need to worry about it. I gripped the counter to steady myself. The grief, the shock, it all melted into something else, something sharp and dark and dangerous. I had spent years bending over backward for this man. I had given him everything, my love, my trust, my time, and in return he had stripped me down to nothing. David thought he had won. He thought I was weak, that I would cry, that I would beg him to fix this, but he didn't know me, not really. I inhaled deeply, steadying the storm raging inside me. "Okay," I murmured. He huffed, exasperated. "Finally, you're being reasonable. I'll be home late tonight. Don't wait up." He hung up. I placed my phone down gently. I stared at the lifeless screen for a long moment, my mind racing, a plan already beginning to form in the depths of my thoughts. David didn't know it yet, but he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. I didn't cry. I didn't scream, didn't throw things, didn't collapse onto the floor in despair. I should have. Maybe that's what David expected. Maybe he pictured me curled up in bed, heartbroken, helpless. Maybe he thought I'd spend days wallowing, waiting for him to come home and toss a careless sorry my way before moving on like nothing had happened. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I planned. I stared at my phone, his words still echoing in my head. Don't call me over trivial matters. I just took care of a few things. Trivial. Taking every cent I had was trivial. Stealing from me, leaving me financially stranded while I buried my mother was trivial. I'd spent years excusing his cruelty, but now I was done playing the fool. My heart pounded as I opened my laptop. If David thought I was too weak to fight back, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. I didn't need to guess what he was doing with the money. I already knew. David was the type of man who believed he was untouchable. He thought he was too smart, too careful to ever be caught. But arrogance makes people sloppy. So I started digging. I opened our shared credit card statements, scanning each transaction carefully, and then I saw it. Dozens of charges that weren't mine, expensive dinners at high-end restaurants, hotel bookings, jewelry stores, and one name kept appearing over and over. Olivia, my sister. The first time I saw it, I thought I was imagining things. My stomach twisted, my breath caught in my throat. No, it couldn't be, but the evidence was right there. I clicked on a hotel booking confirmation, my hands shaking, a suite reserved under David's name, payment confirmed with our joint account. A reservation for two. The last time I spoke to Olivia had been months ago. We were never close. She was always distant, detached. Everything in her life was calculated, strategic. She only did things that benefited her, and now she was sleeping with my husband. I stared at the screen, my body numb. Betrayal from a husband is one thing, but betrayal from family, that was something else entirely. The weight of it all settled into my chest, pressing, suffocating. For the first time in years, I saw my life clearly. David never loved me. Olivia never cared about me. I had spent so long trying to be the perfect wife, the perfect sister, and for what? To be discarded like I was nothing? No, they had made one fatal mistake. They underestimated me. And now I was going to destroy them. David thought I was trapped. No money, no way out. That was his first mistake. I had always been careful. Even when things started going downhill in our marriage, I kept a separate bank account. One he didn't know about. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to get out. I transferred everything into a new account that he had no access to. Then I took the next step. I gathered every single document I could find, our marriage certificate, mortgage papers, insurance policies. I copied everything. I scanned and saved them in a hidden drive, sent a backup to a lawyer I quietly contacted that same night. David thought he was in control. He had no idea that I was about to pull the rug out from under him. I wasn't just going to leave him, I was going to ruin him. If I wanted full control of the divorce, I needed undeniable proof, not just a suspicion, cold, hard evidence. So I played along. I smiled when he came home late, pretending not to notice the scent of another woman on his clothes. I nodded when he mumbled half-hearted excuses. I played the obedient, clueless wife while secretly recording every conversation, saving every text, every call. I even hired a private investigator, a good one. Within a week, I had everything. Photos of David and Olivia together, sneaking into hotels, laughing over candlelit dinners, screenshots of their messages, vulgar, disgusting words about me, about how stupid I was, how easy it had been to take my money. I watched the screen, my fingers gripping the mouse so hard my knuckles turned white. Every word, every image, every whispered betrayal burned into me. And yet, as I sat there, staring at the evidence of their affair, something inside me shifted. I thought I'd feel devastated. I thought I'd feel broken. But instead, I felt powerful, because now I held the cards. I was careful, calculated. I moved my valuables out of the house piece by piece so David wouldn't notice. I started selling things under his name, his expensive watches, his custom suits, transferring the money into my account. I even went to the bank and withdrew every last penny from our joint savings before he could touch it. By the time I was done, David had nothing left, and he didn't even know it yet. The night before I put my plan into action, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. For years, I had seen weakness in my reflection. A woman who loved too much, forgave too easily. A woman desperate to be wanted, to be enough. But now I saw someone else entirely. Someone stronger, smarter. Unbreakable, I touched the ring on my finger, the symbol of a marriage that had died long before today. Then, with steady hands, I slid it off and placed it on the dresser. David thought he had broken me, but he didn't break me. He forged me. And tomorrow he would finally understand what it meant to lose everything. David walked through the door that night like he owned the world. His tie was loosened, his jacket slung over his shoulder, a smirk curling at the edges of his mouth. He tossed his keys onto the counter and let out a sigh, the kind men make when they want you to ask about their day, as if I still gave a damn. I didn't, but I played along. Long day? I asked, setting a glass of whiskey on the table in front of him. He liked feeling like a king in his own house. A drink waiting for him, dinner made, his wife catering to his every whim. It fed his delusion of control. He took a sip, exhaled, yeah. Lot on my plate. I almost laughed. A lot on his plate? That's what he called it, juggling his affair with my sister while siphoning money from our account, living a double life at my expense. I sat across from him, watching him with a quiet curiosity. I wanted to see it, that smug confidence, the sheer, blinding arrogance of a man who thinks he's untouchable. And there it was. David leaned back in his chair, stretching his arms like he was settling into his throne. "You've been quiet lately," he mused, swirling the whiskey in his glass. "That's good, you were starting to nag too much." Nag, I bit the inside of my cheek, fighting back a smile. Not because it hurt, because it was almost too easy. I shrugged. "I guess I just realized you were right, I was worrying too much." That did something to him. His expression shifted slightly. His ego preening under the weight of my supposed submission. "Finally," he said, shaking his head. "You see, sweetheart, this is what I've been trying to tell you. You need to learn to just let go. Stop stressing over things that don't matter. My mother's death, my stolen money, my marriage crumbling in real time. None of it mattered, according to David." I nodded slowly, sipping my own drink, letting the warmth slide down my throat. I could feel it now. The anticipation, the thrill of knowing something he didn't. I wanted him to feel safe, because when he fell, I wanted him to feel the full impact of the drop. The next morning, he was whistling in the shower. I stood outside the bathroom door, listening. How long had it been since I'd heard him that happy, that lighthearted? Years, maybe. And why? Because he thought he had won. He had taken everything from me, my security, my dignity, my family, and he thought I'd just accept it. A few minutes later, he walked into the kitchen, towel around his waist, steam rolling off his skin. He reached for his coffee like it was just another normal morning. I watched him. "Got plans today?" I asked, keeping my voice even. David barely glanced at me as he took a sip. "Yeah, I'll be out late, work stuff." Work stuff, right, because work smelled like perfume that wasn't mine. "Sounds busy," I said. "You sure you'll have time for Olivia?" He froze. It was slight, barely a flicker, but I caught it. A split-second hesitation. A fraction of a breath that betrayed everything. But then he recovered. He smiled, shaking his head like I'd just told him a ridiculous joke. "What's that supposed to mean?" I shrugged. "Just wondering. You two have been spending a lot of time together." His expression hardened, but he didn't panic. Not yet. That was the thing about men like David. They believed their own lies. He set his cup down, sighing dramatically. "Emma, don't start. Olivia's your sister. It's messed up that you'd even think something like that." I tilted my head, feigning innocence. "Oh, so you two aren't sleeping together?" Silence. A charged, thick silence. For the first time in a long time, David looked at me, not past me, not through me, at me. And for the first time in a long time, I saw it, fear. It was small, a flicker of doubt at the edges of his pupils, but it was there, and God, it was satisfying. But he wasn't ready to admit defeat. Not yet. David scoffed, shaking his head like I was insane. Jesus, Emma, you've lost it. I smiled, maybe, and then I walked away. Let him sit with it. Let him wonder how much I knew. Because the moment a liar starts doubting his own security, he starts making mistakes. And I was counting on it that night. David didn't go to work. He went to her. I knew because I followed him. Not closely, not obviously, but just enough. I stayed 2 cars behind as he drove across town. I watched as he pulled into the hotel parking lot. I watched as Olivia walked out to meet him. She wasn't even trying to be discreet. She draped herself over him, kissed him right there in the open like she wasn't fucking my husband. And David was grinning, whispering something in her ear, probably something about me. About how dumb I was, how easy it had been, how predictable my trust had made me. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I should have been furious. I should have been hurt. But instead I felt calm, because this was it, the final confirmation, the last piece of the puzzle. David thought he had won. He thought I was clueless. But what he didn't know, what he wouldn't realize until it was too late, was that the game was already over. I had already won. And by the time he figured it out, he'd have nothing left. When he walked through the door later that night, I was waiting. He didn't know it, but everything was already in motion. My bank account was secure. My divorce lawyer was ready. The evidence was already in place. And the documents he would soon sign, they weren't just divorce papers, they were his financial death warrant. And he would sign them without even knowing. David poured himself a drink, sighing in exhaustion. God, what a day, he muttered, running a hand through his hair. I smiled. Tomorrow, his whole world would burn, and I would be the one holding the match. David had no idea what was coming. He sat on the couch that night, swirling his whiskey, basking in the glow of his own arrogance. He thought he had me exactly where he wanted, quiet, submissive, defeated. But what he didn't know? This was his last night as a free man. By the time the sun set tomorrow, David's life would be in ruins. And I was going to enjoy every second of it. The next morning, I moved with precision. Step 1, empty the joint account. I had already withdrawn every last penny before he could touch it, transferring it into my private account under a new name. But I didn't stop there. I called the bank and froze his personal accounts too. Using my legal access as his spouse, I reported suspicious activity, flagging them for investigation. David wouldn't realize it until later, until he tried to pay for something and his card declined, until he called the bank and they told him they'd need time to review his recent transactions, but by then it would be too late. Step 2, make sure everyone knew who David really was. I had every receipt, every hotel bill, every explicit text message between him and Olivia saved in a neat little file. And this morning, I sent it everywhere, his boss, his coworkers, his family, his friends. Within minutes, his entire world knew. It was poetic, really. David had spent years crafting this image, the successful, charming businessman, the devoted husband, the kind of man people admired. And now all they saw was a lying, cheating bastard who stole from his wife and slept with her sister. I imagined the moment his phone started buzzing, the confusion, the panic as he scrolled through the messages, one after another, each more damning than the last. And the best part? I wasn't even there to see it, because while his life was burning to the ground, I was already 3 steps ahead. Step 3, take what's mine. I met with my lawyer that morning. She was brilliant, the kind of woman who made men like David squirm in their seats. She filed the divorce papers and the lawsuit simultaneously, not just for the infidelity, not just for emotional distress, but for financial fraud. David had stolen from me, moved money without my consent, used our assets to fund his affair. And in court, that was enough to ruin him. He would lose everything, his house, his savings, his future. And the best part? I didn't even have to be in the room when it happened. That afternoon, David finally felt the first tremors of the earthquake I had unleashed. He tried to use his card at a restaurant, declined. He tried to transfer money from his savings, frozen. His phone rang, his boss, furious. He checked his email. termination letter waiting for him. And then finally he got to the messages. From his mother, "What have you done?" From his friends, "Dude, is this real?" From his coworkers, "Jesus, man, you're disgusting." One by one, his world turned against him, and that's when he called me. My phone buzzed. David's name flashed across the screen. I let it ring. Then again, and again. I waited until the fourth call before I answered. Calm, unbothered. "Emma." His voice was ragged, frantic. "What the hell is going on?" I took a sip of my coffee. "What do you mean?" "My accounts are frozen. My boss just fired me. People are calling me, sending me shit about Olivia. What did you do?" I smiled, but he couldn't see it. "Me?" I said innocently. "David, you brought this on yourself." Silence. "You," he exhaled sharply, his composure slipping. "You need to fix this." I laughed, actually laughed. "Fix this?" I repeated. "David, I was just following your advice." "What?" "You told me to stop worrying about things that don't matter. So I did." Another pause. I could hear his breathing, sharp and uneven. "Emma, listen to me. We can fix this. Just come home. Let's talk." There it was, the shift. From rage to bargaining. But he didn't understand. I wasn't his wife anymore. I was his reckoning. "David," I said, my voice steady, "I hope you enjoy rock bottom, because you're going to be here for a long, long time." Then, before he could speak again, before he could beg, before he could spew whatever lie he thought would save him, I hung up. And this time, I never picked up again. But I wasn't done. The next morning, my lawyer delivered the final documents. David had no choice but to sign. His debts, his problem. His house, gone. His reputation, destroyed. He tried to fight it, of course, tried to call Olivia, but she had already moved on. Turns out, she didn't want a broke, disgraced loser who couldn't even pay for dinner. She left him just as easily as he had left me, and that was the poetic ending I needed. I didn't stay to watch him fall apart. I didn't need to. I had my life back, my freedom, my future. And as I stood outside my new apartment, breathing in the crisp morning air, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I reached into my pocket, pulling out my wedding ring, the last remnant of my old life. I rolled it between my fingers, studying it one last time. Then, with zero hesitation, I threw it into the river. It sank instantly, just like David, just like the past I had finally left behind. And as I walked away, I didn't look back. I never looked back. Not when I left the house, not when I walked away from that phone call, not when I heard through the grapevine that David was drowning. Financially, socially, emotionally, I didn't care, because for the first time in years, I was finally free. I had spent too long trapped in that toxic cycle, believing I was powerless, believing that David's approval determined my worth. But now I knew better. He was nothing. And me, I was just getting started. I didn't have to keep tabs on him. The universe did that for me. The fallout from my plan was swift and merciless. David lost everything: his money, his job, his reputation. He was blacklisted in his industry. No company wanted to hire a man with a scandal attached to his name. Employers talked. No one trusted him anymore. And Olivia, she disappeared. Turns out she only wanted David when he was winning. When the reality of his downfall set in, she left him in the dust. I heard she tried to rekindle things with an ex, but that didn't work out either. Poetic justice. David tried to fight back, but there was nothing left to fight for. And me, I thrived. I got a new apartment, a space that was entirely my own, no memories of him, no shadows of the past clinging to the walls. I filled it with flowers, with soft golden light, with things that made me feel alive again. I rebuilt my career, the same floral shop where I had once worked part-time. I bought it. It was mine now. I expanded it, turned it into something bigger, better, something that reflected who I had become: stronger, smarter, unbreakable. And for the first time in years, I woke up every morning with something I had forgotten existed: peace. It happened on a slow Sunday afternoon. I was arranging a bouquet at the front counter when a man walked in. He was in his late 30s, well-dressed, but not in the showy way David used to be. He had a quiet presence, the kind that didn't demand attention but naturally drew it. He hesitated for a moment, before speaking. I need flowers, he said, his voice steady but subdued. For my wife? I smiled. What's the occasion? A flicker of emotion crossed his face, something heavy. She passed away. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I nodded, understanding. Do you want me to help you pick something? He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for too long. Yeah, he said, that would be nice. And just like that, we talked. Not about loss, not about pain, but about flowers, about colors, about small, simple things that made life feel beautiful again. And when he left that day, bouquet in hand, I felt something I hadn't expected, something hopeful. David called me once, just once. I saw his name flash on my screen, and for a split second, I almost didn't recognize it. It felt like a name from another lifetime, a version of me that no longer existed. I answered because I wanted to hear it. His voice was different now. No arrogance, no control, just defeat. Emma, he said, just my name. Like he didn't know what else to say. I let the silence stretch. I wanted him to feel it. Finally, he exhaled. I lost everything. I tilted my head, tapping my fingers against the counter. That's funny, I mused, because I found myself. Another silence. Then, in the quietest voice I had ever heard from him, David asked, Do you ever think about what we— I let out a small laugh, not cruel, just amused. What we had, I echoed. David, I don't think about the past. I only think about where I'm going next. He inhaled sharply, like I had punched the air out of his lungs, and then I said the words that finally ended it. You're nothing to me now, and I hung up. For the last time. Months passed, seasons changed, I changed. I didn't just survive, I flourished. And one day, as I walked past a familiar street, I saw a figure sitting on a bench. David. He looked smaller somehow, worn, like life had chipped away at him, like he was half the man he used to be. For a moment, I considered stopping, saying something, but then I realized I didn't care anymore. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need him to suffer any longer because I had already won, so I walked past without a second glance. And it was the easiest thing I had ever done. I once thought David was my everything. Now he was just a lesson. And the biggest lesson of all, never let anyone convince you that you need them to be whole. Because the truth is, you were never broken to begin with. To anyone who has ever felt small, to anyone who has ever been lied to, used, discarded, to anyone who has ever given their love to someone who didn't deserve it, you are not weak, you are not powerless, you are stronger than you know. And when the time comes, when the world expects you to crumble, when the people who hurt you think they've won, you will rise, not for revenge, not for them, for yourself. Because the best revenge is living so well they become irrelevant.